This is Amy Berkeley. I am the Vice President of Institutional Advancement at Roger Williams University. And first off, we want to welcome you all here today, most especially our panelists. But as this is our second webinar in our series, and to tell our panelists and to orient the whole audience we have here, this is certainly an unprecedented time where we have new, unique circumstances meeting all of our graduating students. And we have invited here our graduating graduate students, our graduating students from University College, and also our graduating students from our Bristol campus. So first off, welcome to them and welcome to you. As I said, this is our second webinar. I emceed the first one, and my team got really smart and said, we need people who know more than you to lead these webinars. So we are very excited to have Heather Traber here, and I'll speak a little bit more about Heather in a moment, but Heather's gonna be our MC. But before I hand it over to her, I do want to give some brief housekeeping reminders. One is that we are recording this session so that we have it for a future resource for those that couldn't be here today and for those that want to watch it again. We've disabled all the video and audio for all our attendees, and we will be using the question and answer feature. And if you'd like to submit a question, please try and include the panelists with whom you would like to speak or have them answer. In the case of Kristen and Kristen, Heather's going to give you last names, so you'll have some help with that. And lastly, I will come back on and give some additional information for our next webinar and some resources that we're going to have at the Career Center. But I think it's so important to remind all of our graduates that the panelists you see in front of you are only a fraction of the help and the network that you have in front of you. And it is so earnest and heartfelt, the folks that are reaching out to our Hawks and want to see them succeed, because we all succeed together. So with that, I'm gonna give you a few words about Heather. I could speak for a lot longer, but I'm gonna keep it brief. Heather Traber is a senior talent acquisition. She has been a senior talent acquisition for more than 20 years, and she has advised hiring managers and HR departments within a broad range of industries. In 2016, she founded Gainfully, where she is the CEO of a career coaching company that helps students and recent college grads land their career launching internships and jobs. I'm going to allow Heather to introduce all the other panelists and start our program. Thanks, Heather.
Well, thank you so much, Amy, and hello, everyone. It's really a pleasure to be here. As Amy said, I run a career coaching company called Gainfully, and I also currently work for a renewable energy company in Boston called Long Road Energy, where I'm the head of talent acquisition. And so I would like to now invite other panelists to briefly introduce themselves. Judge Hardman, would you like to begin?
Absolutely. Judge Hardman, been on the bench in the workers' compensation court for 15 years. I was a litigator handling all types of matters that went to all types of courts for 17 years before that. And before that, I was a court clerk in our state court, wasn't sure what I wanted to do in life, and was working as a registered nurse out of college, and had an opportunity to go to law school, so took a job in the courthouse to learn about the courts and really enjoyed the courts and switched careers myself. And I've been teaching at Roger Williams now for, I believe, 13 years. It's been extremely rewarding, get attached to a lot of my students. I still hear from them on occasion, and certainly most importantly, I encourage them to reach out in a time of need, and the network that we've created has been wonderful.
Terrific. Thank you. Thank you for that. So we'll move to our first Kristen, Kristen Harrington. Could you briefly introduce yourself?
Sure. I'm Kristen Harrington. I'm the owner of 813 Consultants. It's a staffing, recruiting, and payroll services company. I'm also a Roger Williams alum, 2007. I had a great experience at Roger Williams. I loved every minute of it, and I'm really proud alum. And I'm born and raised in Boston, and that's where my company is at the moment as well.
Terrific. Thank you. And Kristen Hill?
Sure thing. Hello, everyone. Kristen Hill. I am from the Boston area originally, but also a proud alum of Roger Williams from 2015. During my time at Roger, I was a criminal justice major that minored in everyology you can think of, sociology, anthropology, it was all about it. I had done an internship working at the Rhode Island Department of Corrections in their education unit, supporting male inmates and getting their GED or college credits. And that's kind of what sparked my interest in that field. I found myself doing a year of service with City Year, which is an education nonprofit that supports schools across the country. And once I completed my year of service, I had fallen absolutely in love with the organization and my experience. So I was lucky enough to find myself as part of their staff now as a recruitment manager, which I've been doing for the past 5 years. So yeah, it's a little bit about me.
Perfect. Thank you, Kristen. And Matt Swenson graduated in 2013.
Yes. Hello, everyone. Yes, Matt Swenson. Grew up in Central Mass, and I graduated Roger Williams in 2013. I was a finance major and was on the baseball team as well. And I work now for Prudential. I've worked for Prudential for about 7 years in talent acquisition, and I'm a regional recruiting specialist covering Greater New England, as well as Queens and Long Island, New York. And I'm also an investment advisor representative as well. So I help folks with financial planning. And yeah, I'm just really happy to be here.
Terrific. Thank you, Matt. I'm going to address a few questions to the panel, which we have prepared in advance, and I will also be joining in answering. Judge Hardman, maybe this is a question you would like to kick off. Based on your experience in the last 5 to 6 weeks, what has changed about the job market?
I'm sorry, you went in and out. I couldn't get all.
Oh, no problem at all.
I apologize.
Yeah, so just jumping in, our first question, based on your experience in the last 5 weeks, what has changed about the job market? Are you seeing anything different out there? Maybe we can just jump to one of the recruiters on the panel who would like to answer, or would you like to kick that question off?
I just certainly say from the law profession standpoint, there's a lot of uncertainty, and I know folks have been furloughed pending what's going on with the current health crisis. But I always encourage my students as they're looking for some type of placement, even if you receive a no, feel free to follow up in a week or 2 weeks, just inquiring if that's still available, and if the person that filled it perhaps wasn't working out and that you're still interested.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I personally, with my clients, I'm seeing a real mix. Some of my clients are actually getting more calls for internships and jobs than they received before the pandemic hit, which is really strange. And others are getting those emails saying internships have been canceled and offers are being rescinded. But I am seeing some bright spots in all of that. Be interesting to hear Kristen Hill from a nonprofit perspective. Are you seeing, what are you seeing?
Yeah, things have definitely shifted for a lot of the young people that I've worked with throughout the year. As you mentioned, a lot of folks are finding themselves in positions where they had full-time opportunities locked down, but are now being put on furlough or are kind of being backed out of that process. So I am finding a lot of folks becoming more interested in AmeriCorps. So AmeriCorps is a national service organization, and so our funding is locked. So our funding isn't being as impacted by this crisis as some other businesses and organizations have been. So as far as AmeriCorps and our organization goes, unfortunately, like the flip side of the recession, it's not good for everyone else, but it's great for us because our work is guaranteed. So our AmeriCorps members are definitely seeing an increase in interest in our programs and a huge influx of applications just because of the work, the certainty of it, which was actually a huge reason why I applied to City Year when I did in college. It was kind of the end of a recession, so things were still up in the air a little bit. So City Year provided me that concrete job opportunity, gain skills, and then be able to move forward from there.
Yeah, interesting. And Matt, are you on the front lines of Prudential? What are you seeing in the past 5 weeks that have changed from your perspective on the job market?
Yeah, I mean, obviously a lot more people on LinkedIn, which is where I really do most of my my recruiting from. Seeing it all from, soon to be college grads, as well as career changers that have never had LinkedIn set up before. And I think you're seeing a lot of this, the companies that are going to be successful through all of this really turn to a virtual and electronic format. For example, what we do as advisors, it's usually going to people's houses and meeting with them, but we have to be able to change our business on the fly and be able to have virtual meetings like this. That's huge. So I've been busier than ever, frankly, with booking appointments nonstop through LinkedIn, talking to soon to be college grads who are now looking for jobs earlier than what they would usually be doing. So I think that's huge. And I've seen a lot of people from college out there and being very, aggressive and proactive with their employment search.
That's great. And Kristen Harrington, are you seeing any big impacts across healthcare, construction, technology? What are you seeing?
So it's really dependent on the industry. With healthcare and construction, we actually had some candidates in the final stages, basically definitely going to be getting those positions. And then it hit right around mid-March that everybody decided in those industries specifically that they're putting them on hold. We're hoping that as things start to come back, as the healthcare industry starts to be slightly less affected, they'll start hiring again. Same in construction when they start getting those in Boston, it has been completely shut down. I know other places things are on temporary hold. So as those come back, we're still hoping those positions will become available again. So those have been hit probably the hardest that I've seen. But then I'm also working with a nonprofit, Walker, which is out of Needham, and they have essential employees. And because they have essential employees, it's a relief staff position. They actually need those more than ever. So I've been working extra hours on that. So it's kind of depending on the industry, we've seen different things.
Interesting. So it sounds like everyone's getting a real mix of some bright spots and some not so bright spots. Moving on to the next question, graduates have expressed concerns about how competitive the job market will be when they begin their job search. What should soon-to-be graduates be doing right now? Who would like to jump in and answer that one? Is there any?
Well, I would just say from the Judge Hardman, from the legal profession, the number of law school graduates has been pretty high for the state of Rhode Island, and the available jobs have been not as high. So trying to find a place to fit in. But the most important thing is to just continue working at something, not to have any gap from school to no job at all. And one interesting story was I called a friend of mine on behalf of a young graduate looking for something, and they said, I wish I had called earlier. They just hired a young person. The person had gone out on a lobster boat and was working on a lobster boat. And that made an impression on my friend that, hey, this kid's a hard worker. We could use a hard worker in the office, and the kid got his first law job, and it was pretty cool.
That's great. What a great story. Yeah, and just really using the time to do anything, really. Just build skills and be aggressive and get out there.
Falling out. Everyone froze on my computer.
Kristen Harrington, I'd be interested to hear, do you have suggestions about what you think people can do?
I would say don't be afraid to take on temporary, temp to perm or contract jobs. That's one of the things I did when I first graduated as well. It's a great way to gain experience, and it's also a great way, if you can't get your ideal role the minute you graduate, if you can get into the company that you're interested in, or if you can at least get into the industry that you're interested in, they'll, as you start out in a contract or temporary position, you'll show your value, you show your worth, and once they do have a full-time position available, they'll be more likely to hire you because you're already trained, you're already familiar with the culture out there, already know you. So I would say don't be afraid to take any temp or contract positions, and then it's gaining you experience and it's keeping you working in the meantime.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And that's something I've been recommending to my clients. Do you have suggestions or any kind of resources where students or recent grads can look for these contract positions other than LinkedIn and Indeed? Do you have ideas?
So I would say for my company, we specifically, we look on ZipRecruiter, we're on Glassdoor, we're also on LinkedIn and Indeed. But I would also say networking. You know, anytime you can reach out to anybody in your network, your friends, your family, start there, and then reach out from there. And that's where you really learn about a lot of your opportunities.
Great, thank you.
If I could just add, Heather, sorry, yeah, Kristen, you hit on, there's a great book for young folks called The Defining Decade by a Dr. Meg Jay, and she discusses how important it is in the big life decisions you make during that decade of your 20s. And Kristen, you hit right on it, is create networks. And you'd be amazed, it's not just your family and friends, there's loose networks that you've met over life. And don't be afraid to reach out to those people. All you can get is maybe no, or people have a lot of satisfaction in helping other people. And hopefully that network works for folks. Thank you.
Absolutely. Moving on to the next question. How and why should graduating students be utilizing networking platforms like LinkedIn? And how can it help them in their job search? I would like to jump into this one, and since we're talking about networking, I think LinkedIn is one of the most powerful tools out there. And, it offers really three things. It's your digital resume. It is a job and internship board. And it's a networking tool, a profound networking tool. And, I'll just jump back. The job and internship board on LinkedIn allows you to filter according to industry location, but it also allows you to filter according to date posted. And right now, as a job seeker, if you click on that date posted, you can actually look at jobs that were posted within the last week or 24 hours. And that would be a really interesting starting point, because you really want to go for the companies that are actively recruiting in the middle of a pandemic, not looking at jobs that were posted a month ago. I also advise my clients to follow their alumni page on LinkedIn. The alumni tool on LinkedIn is incredible, an incredible tool to build a network. Roger Williams has 28,000 alum on LinkedIn alumni, their LinkedIn alumni page. And it's such an incredible tool. It allows you to filter by region, by company. You could look at alumni's majors, and it really gives you the ability to target both, types of people that have types of positions you want to work in, potentially companies you want to work for. And from there, I recommend people send a brief networking note by connecting. And for example, you can just reach out and say, hi, Mary, I see you attended Roger Williams University. I'm a rising senior. I'm majoring in blank. And, ask for an informational interview. Ask if they would be open to letting you send your resume. I can assure you that a fellow Roger Williams alum will be very open to receiving a LinkedIn message from from a student or somebody who's soon to graduate. It's that warm connection that really will help. And there are a significant amount of studies that say that a lot of hires by companies are made through referrals. So it's really the place to go. And so I always recommend to my clients, don't just be applying, clicking and shooting and applying for jobs. You can do that as one of the things, one of the ways you spend your day, but also be very strategic, get on a LinkedIn, get on your LinkedIn alumni page and target people specifically. Does anyone else have any thoughts or ideas around LinkedIn and how it can be a powerful tool for grads or soon to be grads?
I can speak a little bit to that. So here at City Year, as with a lot of companies, we've really leaned into the virtual space. So my full-time job is to be on these virtual spaces, whether it be LinkedIn. And for our company, we weigh heavily on Handshake as well, which I know Roger Williams this year got onto Handshake. My first piece of advice is make sure your profile is filled out, that you show to us that you've been active on that space, because we are on those platforms seeking you out. So first off and foremost, have your page all set up, have it updated, because if I see that you have some job experience and you've been active on there, I'm going to reach out to you. So that would be my first tip, is just make sure you've polished your profile page. My second tip, as you mentioned, is just sending those warm connections. I know that for me as a recruiter, if I come across a student or applicant that I'm working with that may not be a good fit for City Year or has interests that lie beyond the position I'm hiring for, I do my absolute best to find them a connection somewhere else. And if the recruiter you're working with hasn't offered that up, feel free to ask and just say, hey, do you know someone else in this field that you could connect me to? I know that for me, I view my job as someone who's supporting students no matter what they want to do. Of course, I want them to do City Year, but if they want to go elsewhere, I really do my best to help give them that light support. So be fearless in this space. I think the more fearless you can be and the more proactive, the better chance you're going to give yourself in getting that connection with someone. And yeah, building your network is going to be very key right now to ensure that you're going to be able to be hired when the time comes. If you've reached out to someone, they have a position available, they'll think of you first as opposed to someone else.
Terrific, thank you. Matt, it would be great to hear from you, and given that you're on LinkedIn every day, what are you seeing?
Yeah, so I think, for students, LinkedIn is your chance for employers to learn about you before they even speak to you. So to include everything you've done on campus, not just where you went to school, but include everything you've done on there, because that's how I truly know who you are, or get like a little kind of like sneak peek to learn about you. But also, like how you mentioned the networking groups and whatnot, take that opportunity. One of the first things I did was try to find advisors that were in the Roger Williams networking group. You connect, you can have all sorts of connections based on everything you follow, every group you're a part of on LinkedIn. And kids are so good at utilizing social media now. Make sure all like the notification settings are turned on your phone stuff. That way when someone messages you, you get it right away and you can respond right away too. Because I know that for recruiters in general, especially with what I do, like I'll have set times throughout the day that I'm on LinkedIn. So if I'm messaging, I'm only on it for a little bit. So if you get it and message me back, I'm going to be able to respond. Where if you wait, a few hours, I might not be on there again. So that's definitely, I think, a big way to utilize LinkedIn for getting those quick connections, but then building upon that even faster.
That's such a great point, and thank you, Matt, and also for highlighting how important it is that people respond in a timely manner. It's critical, so I completely agree. Anyone else? Kristen, do you, yeah.
I completely agree with what everybody said so far. Just to add to that is just making sure if I'm really quickly looking through either resumes or your LinkedIn profile, if you have a specific job in mind that you're looking for, try to optimize both your profile and your resume to reflect that job as much as possible. So maybe looking at a job description of a job you're interested in and making sure that either you have any skills that apply to you and applies to that job, make sure that those are listed. Try to match up any skills, certificates, vocabulary, anything like that that's going to make it easy for a recruiter who's constantly looking through resumes and profile to kind of help you stand out more.
Heather.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So sorry to interrupt. Do you mind if there's a lot of questions coming in.
Yes.
Would you like a question from the audience?
Sure. Yeah. We've got quite a list here, and sure, if you'd like to throw one in, why not?
Well, one of the questions that came up was, I am curious in how this environment might compare to the 2008 crisis and whether any of you went through that. Any advice for us now entering this job market? And Kristen Harrington from the class of 2007, something tells me that you might know something about that.
Yes, yeah. So when I first graduated, I wasn't completely sure what I wanted to do. So one of the first things I did was I started doing contract work and temp work to try to figure out what kind of company I wanted to work for, what kind of position I wanted. And I also had an opportunity come up where they had a work visa possible through a program called BUNAC, where I could work in London for a few months. So I grabbed that opportunity. I went there, and then when I came back, it was the financial crisis. So at that point, I thought what I wanted to do was event planning. But of course, in a crisis like that, that's one of the first things that are going to get cut. There weren't that many opportunities for me out there. So instead, what ended up happening is I did a networking meeting at the convention center. And from that meeting, I was able to get a job as an exhibitor services rep. And basically what an exhibitor services rep is they're the behind the scenes, they're the facility side of event planning. So I learned all about electrical, plumbing, booth setup for conferences and events, how to set up a room, different things like that, which wasn't ideally what I was looking for at the time, but ended up being fundamentals and were so important later on. And I was able to take that experience and translate that into when I did become an event services coordinator at the convention center. That was huge to have that background. And also when I went into events and alumni relations at Wentworth. So I would say some of my advice would be, from what I learned is, again, don't be afraid to do temp work or contract work. And also, if you're not in the exact industry or the exact role that you're hoping for, try to get as close as possible and just know that if you're working hard, you're learning, it's going to be valuable experience that you're going to put towards your next position, but just keep working towards it and don't get discouraged.
Heather, I'm sure you have comments on this as well.
Yes, I do, definitely. I think that, you know, I was a recruiter during the financial collapse, and I think just as Kristen said, really taking contract work and temporary work is a fantastic way of opening up and broadening the amount of opportunities that you might be able to be considered for, but it also gives you a chance to prove yourself to the company, right? You get in there, you do a great job, and you know, usually those contracts will go perm if they really, a company's not going to lose a good employee if they're doing a great job. So yeah, there's a lot you can do. I think it's just a matter of also thinking broadly. I'm recommending to my clients that they take volunteer jobs. I have one client right now who has accepted an opportunity to read scripts for a film company. She's a playwright, and she's at the University of Virginia, and she's reading plays all summer. So people are just, you know, now is the time to be entrepreneurial, to think out of the box, to really open up to opportunities that you might not have, you know, considered. Also, just quickly, I will add that I have another client who wanted to do nothing but sports marketing. And he really had to say, well, you know, I'm not getting a sports marketing opportunity. What do I do? And so he's really had to just look at transferable skills. What can he do that will build some kind of marketing skills that he can eventually take into a sports marketing focused role? So you just really have to be open.
Heather, I can add a little bit to that as well. City Year is a service program. It's a volunteer program that you do for a year. And both from my own experience of having done the program myself and having it on my resume, and now seeing so many other people graduate, it is an experience that employers really do value. When you show employers that you've gone above and beyond to commit to something that's much bigger than yourself, such as a mission of a volunteer or service organization, it really speaks to just the value that you seek in your work. And it's definitely something that will allow you to be a competitive applicant once the job market bounces back. Employers really, really value someone that's gone and done work that is bigger and more valuable, oftentimes than, you know, oh, this is my exact professional career. Like you guys talked about, picking up those skills is going to be really important during this time so that you can really ensure that you truly will be that valuable candidate.
Perfect. So I want to check in with you, Amy. How are we doing on time? And do we have a time for a few more questions?
Yeah, we do. It's 2:30, and I have a bunch of more questions that I can go into.
Okay.
One of them is, should I get a certificate or continue my education instead of trying to go fully into the job market? As a recruiter, does that help get my resume more attention? A graduate or certificate program? Maybe Matt wants to start.
Yeah, I think that it's all dependent on the type of employment, the type of career you're going after. You know, for me, I don't think it does one of the, if I see someone wanting to get their master's, okay, great. Like I commend them for wanting to do that and further on their education. If I see someone want to jump into the career right away, I don't hold any, like, it's all the same to me in that sense. But I know that my industry is a little bit different from others. I mean, but bottom line though, whether it's continuing education or doing something that isn't what you believe to be like your actual career path, like some great things can happen. You're going to learn and develop some great skills and qualities from really no matter which path you choose to go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Judge Hardman, would that be a question that you'd like to?
No, I mentioned about the young person that went and worked on a lobster boat, couldn't get into the legal profession right away. Certainly that helps. We had other folks that worked at the different hospitals throughout the state of Rhode Island, and that gave them some background in the medical field. And when they get out of law school, they started working in personal injury offices, and it really served them well.
Mm.
Terrific. Judge Hardman, just quickly on the tail of that, how can students, regardless of age or professional stage, in your opinion, prepare for next steps?
Certainly your work experience does help, and taking courses that might open up other avenues for you, whether you take a finance course and had never taken one before, or an accounting course, learning how to read a spreadsheet. Certainly with computer skills today, it's nice to have some young folks on the panels. I've learned more about LinkedIn just in the last 30 minutes than I knew about LinkedIn before. So really exciting.
Great. Amy, I wanted to ask a question related to the mentorship program. The question came in that, do you recommend graduates connect with a mentor, and how could this be beneficial? Mm-hmm. And it's such a great question.
Yes. And I would love to remind people that the next webinar we're having, which is next week on the 29th, the same time, is going to be all about the mentorship program. So one of the things that has been so heartwarming, and I opened up the talk with this, is the amount of alumni, trustees, advisors, folks that we've had come into Roger Williams to lecture, reaching out to us to say that they would love to enter into a relationship with a graduating senior to be a mentor. And you know, we are looking at matching people up for industry, matching people up to graduate programs if they're interested in doing that. Really, it's about what Kristen started talking about. It's about expanding your networking base. But in this case, it's almost like your networking base with your favorite uncle or aunt who's like really in your corner and wanting to open up their own Rolodex for someone else. So we will definitely have a whole session on that next week on how we're going to make that happen on the back end for you. But I know for myself and probably every person that's found fulfillment in their profession, there has been someone in their corner with whom they may not have gotten the opportunities or the ability to really speak well about a job opportunity without their input. So I really encourage everyone to look at the mentoring network.
Great.
Kristen Hill, did you have a mentor when you graduated from Roger Williams?
So I don't know if I had like an official mentor through like a mentoring program, but for me, definitely I had some professors from the criminal justice department that I had gotten to know really well that were huge support in writing reference letters and just supporting me in kind of navigating what the criminal justice job market looked like and how to make myself the most appealing candidate. I would say another huge advocate that I had for me was the staff supervisor of the club that I was a part of. I was part of the Eco Reps. So Scott Yonan was the staff professor at the time, or supervisor, and he was another really great advocate for me, someone that I could call with questions, even if they were super silly or misguided. He was someone that I definitely felt a no judgment zone with. So I strongly suggest that you seek those folks out, especially while you're still like quote unquote at the Roger Williams campus. While those relationships are still fresh, utilize them, nurture them, because cut to 5 years later, there are definitely some professors I would love to reach back out to. I haven't talked to them in a long time. So foster those relationships the best that you can while they're still fresh.
That's great. There is another question that came up, which about LinkedIn. One question said, can you please share some guidance towards communicating with recruiters on LinkedIn?
Sure.
Matt, you use LinkedIn. Oh, go ahead, Heather.
No, yeah, I mean, I think that, look, recruiters, there are two types of recruiters, right? There are internal corporate recruiters, and then there are agency recruiters. So I'm not sure which one they want to target, but both are very, very good to approach. But I think you'd approach them the same way you'd approach any other potential networking contact. You just explain to them that you're conducting a job search, you're very interested in what they may have in their portfolio of positions and would like to have a brief conversation with them on the phone and send them your resume. I think that, yeah, I mean, Matt, I'm going to turn this one over to you.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously, have some background so you can determine if they are like an agency recruiter or if they're working within a particular, space. But I mean, reaching out professionally and seeing how they respond, because I mean, recruiters respond differently. Some are just, professional. Some are just kind of, just slang language almost in a way. So definitely be professional first. But I mean, reach out to as many as possible that interests you, but have some background on them and have some background on what they hire to as well. That's always a big thing where, I get a ton of messages where they're looking for a totally different position that I don't hire for. And frankly, I mean, you're going to get limited responses that way. So do your homework and also try to make it as easy for the recruiter as possible. Try to give them, as much information without writing a book to them, but like try to give them as much information about you as possible so that so basically I can sit here and be like, all right, that's easy. Yeah, let me call this person, you know?
So Matt, there's a follow-up question, which is one of our audience members has reached out to recruiters on LinkedIn and hasn't heard back, but happens to have their personal email address and is reticent to use it because they don't want to seem overly aggressive. What Kristen and Matt and Kristen,
go for it.
Yeah, go for it.
You got nothing to lose. You got nothing to lose. Yeah, you go for it. You got it. You got to do whatever you have to do. That's that person's fault for not really responding. Or I saw that question earlier. Yeah, how no one's really responded. Look up the office. Try to find someone different in there that will respond. Frankly, I think the younger people are probably more likely to be on their email and kind of manage it a little bit better. So like I know I have a bunch of folders on there and have it all broken down so I can easily see something, identify and respond. But definitely reach out. There's no, in my mind, there's no limit that there should be on that.
And I just want to jump in here. One of the things that I always ask is, where is the process breaking down? Are you sending hundreds of emails out through LinkedIn and not getting any response? Well, then your approach needs to change. You're not saying the right thing in that brief note that's catching their attention, or you're just throwing spaghetti up against the wall and hoping something will stick. And you really have to be much more targeted, as Matt just highlighted. But I think it's important to look where things might be breaking down in terms of not getting a response. Are you doing lots of first phone interviews but not getting beyond that? Then you have to work on your phone interview skills and your speaking, your voice presence on the phone. Are you getting first interviews but it's not going beyond that? Then something's happening in that first interview that you're not, presenting or transferring your skills in a meaningful way. But just try to look at your job search and see where you're not getting movement and where it's not necessarily moving to the next stage, because that would be a good place to kind of diagnostically start to address. So
just like that, Heather, my son recently graduated from college and was telling me about a particular company he came across, and red flag sirens were going off. And so I went into the Secretary of State's office and I looked at it, and the company, the officers of the company, it was the same person, was the president, vice president, treasurer, and secretary. And okay, so it's a one-person shop, and led me to go down some other avenues. And I found out the person also had a company up in Massachusetts, and he was the president, vice president, secretary, and treasurer. And then did a little more snooping and found out that the person was in some particular trouble up in Massachusetts. And he'd set up camp in Rhode Island, and he was preying on new graduates at college, and that's what he was trying to take advantage of, the new graduates. So
yeah,
I don't know what happened to him. Yep.
Glassdoor, I'm sorry to interrupt. Glassdoor is an incredible tool for every potential job interview, phone interview, even somebody emailing you, expressing interest in your resume. You should do a quick search on Glassdoor. Just make sure that, you don't see 50 bad, negative, thumbs down reviews, and just Google search the company and just make sure that you kick the tires a little bit for yourself.
Yeah, and someone else had mentioned Glassdoor early, and I wrote that down, so I'm going to look at that. I've never heard of that before either, so thank you.
We have an audience question about someone who's an experienced professional who left the workforce to pursue a degree and is now returning to the workforce. Does all of this advice, is that equally applicable to this individual? Kristen?
Yes.
Oh, okay, yes.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I speak to a lot of career changers every day. And yeah, I think it absolutely does apply to them. Updating your LinkedIn, and I mean, they went back to school to really better themselves. And they should want to show that to other employers for sure. That way they can level up their career as well.
And I'll just add, from my days at JP Morgan, a lot of large companies have return to work programs that are really interesting. JP Morgan had one for women that were out of the workforce, having children and wanted to get back in. And, so just look into potentially these larger companies. Prudential, I'm sure, has something like this. But many of them will have return to work programs that could be interesting.
That's great.
The only thing I would add, sorry. The only thing I would add quickly is just if you have any gaps in your resume, just to make sure to clarify what those gaps are, either in a cover letter or on the resume itself or in an email introduction. And that way they understand, what you might have been doing if it was going back to school or raising a family or what have you. They just understand what the gap is.
We also have another question from someone who is specifically looking for a job in the education field. I don't know if Kristen Hill, if you had any experience because of AmeriCorps for folks looking for education jobs?
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is obviously education jobs are something that are always needed, always available. I think if you're looking for higher ed education jobs, that's a tough area right now, because I know that higher ed institutions are experiencing a lot of financial instability. As far as becoming a primary educator as of right now, I think the first thing to recognize is the current state, right? Most of our school districts across the country are operating through virtual learning. So I think when you think about submitting an application and doing some outreach, making sure that your current resume and past experiences are able to highlight the different ways you've been able to educate people using different tools, right? Not just in-person instruction, but really thinking about skills that you can take into virtual learning, because that's going to be a huge thing that we're looking at for the fall. I would say really thinking about your resume and how to highlight how you're able to kind of adjust to different teaching landscapes, because the teaching landscape is definitely uncertain for the fall, and many teachers are having to adjust to a whole new landscape of meeting with students online and different things like that. So really kind of adjusting your resume to highlight those different skills.
Great. And I don't know if anyone has any experience on how you would specifically use LinkedIn for education jobs, or maybe it's such a specific.
You can narrow so under the LinkedIn advanced search functionality, you can just look for jobs within specific industries and just click on education.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can also use it, to do a keyword search. So you can use keywords within LinkedIn to find, use the keywords that are in that particular role. Just within the search bar in LinkedIn, you can find.
I would say for education jobs too, I think LinkedIn is a good place to start, but there's a lot of school district specific job boards for education. So if you're looking for something more specific, or you're not finding what you need in the LinkedIn search, try finding more of those specific job boards that are really targeted towards education jobs only.
Yeah.
Kristen, did you have something to add?
Just thinking outside of the box on it. So for example, one of the programs I'm working with is Walker. They're a nonprofit, and they work with children that actually live on campus. So they're still looking for teachers assistants at the moment. So maybe looking for nonprofits that have residential children, because they'll still be looking for people to come on campus for the most part, and they have essential workers. So just trying to think outside of the box at different opportunities that might be out there.
That's great. Thank you. Another question that's come up is in this unique time, not being able to have security in finding a job after graduation, or not really knowing what the next condition is going to arise that will define your job search. How do you stay resilient and enthusiastic during what could be a stressful time?
I can jump in. I think that you, for my clients, really feeling like they have actions to take make them feel empowered. And I think you have to, and that's why I'll go back to the networking piece, just clicking and applying to job after job and not feeling like you're getting any responses can really wear you down and just be depleting emotionally. And if you feel like you can be a little more strategic and reach out to people, start thinking about friends and family, use that LinkedIn alumni tool, I think it helps you take a little bit of the, throwing things into a black hole and never hearing back feeling. And then also just the regular things in life that keep us all balanced, keep doing those things, exercise, spend time with family, all animals, we're all probably, our animals are crawling on us at this point. But, I think it's just try to keep a level of normalcy and be really diligent and organized about your job search. I'll just add one more tool that I offer for my clients that's free online, and I think it's one of the best tools. It's called Hunter, HUNTR.co, and it's a job search organizer that while you're on the internet looking for jobs, you can actually just click a button on your computer and it downloads to a tracker a list of jobs that you can apply to at a later time. So it's a tool to help you keep organized. It also gives you a really good feeling because you can kind of click and drag the things you apply to into different columns and really see yourself progressing through your job search. So I strongly recommend that as a free tool that people can download.
That's great. Matt, did you have any ideas on how to stay resilient and enthusiastic?
Yeah, I mean, you can't control what's going on, so it's not your fault. So don't think it's you at all. It's the situation. I mean, take the time, like Heather said, try to better yourself and try to keep, busy in a way. I know everyone has different situations though. Some people, they don't need to find a job right away. They're lucky enough or fortunate enough to be able to have, parents that can weather that storm. Some people are not in that position as well, and need to find something, and just know that whatever you try to find anything, and if that's the case, like find something that will keep you busy, but also provide you some sort of income, and just know, okay, hey, I'm doing this now because I have a responsibility to do it now. But that doesn't mean that you're setting yourself up for a totally different path in the future. But all in all, like, just, it's not you. Just stay positive. And when you do speak to recruiters, be positive, because most recruiters are like relatively positive, like to talk. So be that positive person too. No matter how hard that might be sometimes, just try your best to do that.
Great.
How about Kristen Harrington?
Just from my own experiences, I've had many ups and downs throughout starting my own business, and as well as changing careers. And what I would say is everything comes together. So try not to worry and overthink it. Like everybody else was saying, this is not something that you can control at the moment. So whatever this leads you to next, it doesn't have to be what you're going to do forever. It's just going to be what you're going to do next. And try to make the most of whatever that is, and you'll take value from that later. I didn't know that doing event planning, and then I also was a business analyst, and those things, and a recruiter, and those things all came together so that I could be in this position right now, and I didn't see how that would work out before. So just try to remember that as you're starting out, that you may not see how everything will connect back to what you want to do, but as long as you're learning, it's going to be a valuable experience, and just try to stay positive.
Judge Hardman, do you want to add to that?
I would just say that, I mean, just listening to the young folks participating, and I'm learning things myself, and I certainly would encourage, as I said earlier about that book, The Defining Decade, continue to be positive, like Matt said. And the other thing is the entrepreneurial folks out there are looking at new avenues and what's going on. Unfortunately, people that are confined to nursing homes, people can't interact with their family members in nursing homes. And you have that aging population in the nursing homes. They need to learn some skills such as FaceTime and what services are out there to assist those people in trying to maintain their family networks. And I think the young folks are finding those avenues.
That's great. Kristen Hill.
Yeah, this is something I'm very familiar with. As a senior in college, I remember feeling beyond frustrated applying for jobs. Everyone wanted 3 to 5 years experience. And I was like, well, I just got this degree and had internships and part-time jobs. So I know the feeling well. I think my biggest piece of advice is recognizing that every experience you're going to have, again, as we said, open to different experiences that you may not have ideally saw yourself in. If someone would have told me senior year that I'd be a recruiter one day, I would have been like, what the heck is a recruiter? And no, I'm a criminal justice major. Absolutely not. But this is where my path took me. And I've learned and grown so much from being open to exploring new things that I wouldn't have considered. So just recognizing that whatever you find yourself doing during this crazy time, you have to be able to see the silver lining and recognize that every job you have, every opportunity you have, you're gaining skills from. Heck, when I have job interviews, I still talk about being a waitress and the skills I gained from that experience. People all the time are like, oh, I was only like a sales clerk. And I'm like, but you learned a lot from that. Just really like taking pride in who you are, the skills you've gained so far, the experiences you've had, and recognizing that it is valuable. Again, like Matt said, it's not you, it's the current job climate, and just like keep saying that to yourself over and over again.
So valuable. Heather, we have about 3 minutes before we wrap up. I'll just come in at the end to give some logistical information, but I'd love to hear you wrap this all up with a bow.
Wow, that's a big, tall order. No, I'm hearing so many great pearls of wisdom, and I think that to stay positive, to stay organized in your job search, to grab all the resources and utilize the time in a great way, and again, think out of the box, be positive. And really go the extra mile to put yourself out there, because there are remote opportunities, there are all sorts of creative things happening, and I think you just really, there are resources. So we'll get through this.
Thank you so much, and thank you all for taking your time for Roger Williams and for our alums. Last session, I gave my email and was able to connect several of our students who wrote in to the panelists and to some other folks in our network. So I'm going to do it again. It's A Berkeley, which is ABERKELEY at rwu.edu. I certainly don't always have the answer, but I'm never shy about asking someone else to supply it. So Kristen and Judge Hardman and Matt and Heather, you've been so authentic with your advice and with your earnest desire for all of our Roger Williams alums to find their next step. And I really appreciated all the comments of, don't take it too seriously. I graduated undergraduate as a poetry major, and believe it or not, there's not that many jobs for that. But I had a really fun couple of years and learned a lot of skills that hopefully I'm bringing to Roger Williams. So thank you again for everyone. Please, please, please reach out to us, and definitely think about our mentor webinar on August 29th at 2 o'clock. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Best
you.
of luck.
Bye, everyone. Best of
Be
luck.
well, stay positive.
Bye-bye.